And having said so, one more person in the waiting room. Oh, oops, another. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and let's get started with today's presentation. So I am Bill DeVincenzi. I will introduce myself, okay. So I have been a lecturer at San Jose State for like 27 years. So I've had a long-term career here. Prior to that, for 28 years, I was a financial executive, worked in a bunch of different companies and enjoyed that, but decided to retire at the ripe old age of 50 and then got hooked into teaching a class here at San Jose State. And I just absolutely fell in love with teaching. And so I've been doing that ever since. I got involved in climate reality after failing to retire for the third time in 2018 and have been leading climate reality talks ever since. I'm a member of the Speakers Bureau, and Campbell Scott, who is also online, is also the head of the Speakers Bureau here at Santa Clara County, or Santa Clara Valley chapter. So been involved very much in, excuse me while I, okay, come on. Why are you not advancing? Okay, there's only one way to do it. So fortunately, my arrows aren't working. The only thing that's working is this little arrow over in the left-hand corner. So you don't need to know all my problems. But I'm also Vice President Treasurer of Elders Action Network, which is the parent of Elders Climate Action, which is how I got started in this whole climate thing. And just recently, in the last 6 months, I've been appointed faculty in residence for sustainability at San Jose State. And I'm very thrilled to be in that role, working with Debbie Andres and the Office of Sustainability here, and trying to, one, enhance what we're doing from a sustainability standard here at San Jose State, but also let people know that we're doing a hell of a good job and that you should be proud of us. We're in the top 6% of all universities. Out of 1,035 universities, we are in the top 6%. So we're doing quite well. And so you should all know that. As far as my talk today is concerned about climate, I am bipartisan. I have no political party affiliations. To me, this is a moral and humanitarian issue. It's never been politics for me at all. As a college professor, I use my own research. I vet my own sources, so you can pretty much rely on what I have to say today. And my purpose, why do I do this? Well, I'm concerned about the future. I'm concerned about what kind of future I'm leaving for my children and my grandchildren, all future generations, and all life. And this includes you. You're the age of my grandchildren. So you're very special to me. So the topic of my talk, I'm going to break it down into basically three pieces. And that is climate change real? I think you all are pretty much up on that. So I'll be brief on this section, but I think it's important to know how this works, why it's a problem, and because we have to do something about it, okay? And so then we'll go into, can we change? Do we have the ability? And the answer is yes, we have technologies and systems in place to change. And so the final question is, will we? Do we have the will, either the political power or the personal power to make this happen? So starting out with, is climate change real? I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the mechanics behind it. So this is a picture actually from space, and this blue here you see is the atmosphere. Now it looks pretty thick, it's about 5 miles thick, but when you think about this surrounding a globe that's 25,000 miles around, that is a very paper thin atmosphere. So let me go back here, darn this thing. So how the global warming works, the sun sends us light waves, they pass through that atmosphere, they hit the earth and they warm the earth very nicely. And some of that is radiated back into space because of the reflectivity of parts of the planet. And so it doesn't get too hot. And this is why the planet glows when you see it from space, and it looks beautiful, the reflectivity. But but some of that is actually trapped by the atmosphere and stays. So over the last million years or so, it's been relatively stable, this kind of a system, where this amount of sunlight has been pretty consistent. And I'll show you something relative to that in a minute. But the problem is here, we're putting 162 million tons of pollution into the atmosphere every 24 hours. And that's a big problem. So you see that little blue membrane there just thickened, right? And so it's reflecting more and more of that sunlight back down onto the planet, hence global warming. This is the mechanics or the science behind it. This is what's actually happening. So the planet is getting warmer. And think of it like a blanket. The greenhouse gases are like a blanket, and the thicker the blanket, the warmer you are, the warmer the planet will be. So where does all this warming come from? Well, we start a lot of these charts back here, the advent of the Industrial Revolution, and this is actually when humans started putting CO2 into the atmosphere on top of any other natural forms of it. You can see that after World War II, this just really took off, and it's still going up. So lots of CO2 going up into the atmosphere. And, the question is, where does it come from? Well, look at this graphic and you can see industrial processes, agriculture, transportation, both air and land is probably 30 to 40% of it. But crop burning, thawing of the thermophrost, which releases actually methane, but coal mining, coal burning plants, landfills are all part of the source of what's going on. And if you look at what's happened then over the last 800,000 years, and I use this because this is kind of as humans evolved and the animals and plants that are alive with us have evolved, you can see it's been a very consistent 200 to 300 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere until the Industrial Revolution. Okay, and we started putting excess CO2 into the atmosphere, and you can see what's happened. Okay, in fact, in 2021, we're approaching 420 parts per million. So it's still going up, hasn't stopped. And that is, excuse me, because I'm still admitting people. And that is the problem. And so you say, okay, well, so what? And the so what is this: if you superimpose the temperature of the planet below the CO2 content, you see a startling correlation between these two things. Absolutely startling and absolutely scary when you get here, okay? If the climate, the change, the temperature reacted to this, that would pretty much extinguish life as we know it on the planet. Fortunately, don't get worried yet, fortunately, you can see a time differential here between the peak in the CO2 and the peak in the temperature. So that says we have some time, okay? Not a lot. And if we do nothing, this will happen, okay? Can't let that happen. So right now we're sitting here with about a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase. We cannot let that get much higher than that, okay? So that's the problem in a nutshell, and it's a problem we need to deal with. So do we see any evidence? Trying to admit somebody here, but my screen is not letting me. Do we see any evidence of the warming? Well, yeah, 19 out of the last 20 years have been the hottest years on record. Okay, that's pretty amazing in itself. And if you look at the last 5 years, they've all been the hottest years. So, and when you add 2021 in here, it's going to go right at the top of the list here as the hottest year ever. So are we seeing evidence that we're heating up? Yeah, we are. We are. Okay, let's talk a little bit about where all that heat goes. This chart says 93% of that heat is actually trapped by the ocean. The ocean is a really good absorber of heat. So you say, so what? Well, for one thing, warmer oceans lead to way more intense hurricanes. And they also lead to hurricanes that intensify more rapidly. And the problem here is that you don't have as much warning. If they intensify more rapidly, you don't have as much warning as you would normally have. This warmer air holds more moisture. So, for every 1 degree Celsius above normal, you get 7% more water vapor. And I'll show you an example of what that can do. Storm surges increase, and the storms tend to stay in place longer, okay? And if you look at Hurricane Harvey, it's a great example of how it came across the Gulf of Mexico, slammed into Texas, and then slammed into Louisiana. 4% degrees Celsius higher were the temperatures of the water, okay? And if you remember my little chart before where it's 7% more precipitation for every 1 degree, that means 28% more moisture in Harvey. What did that do? Harvey dropped 50 inches of rain on Texas in 5 days. Now, to put that in perspective, in San Jose here last year for the entire rainy season, we got 6 inches of rain. They got 50 inches in 5 days. That's a lot of rain, okay? So much more intense hurricanes and much more moisture laden. In fact, 2020 was a record year for hurricanes. They had 30 named storms. They average about 12. They had to go to the Greek alphabet so they could name them all. Delta was the worst because it intensified from a tropical storm to a Category 4 earthquake. I'm not talking about earthquakes. Category 4 hurricane in just 30 hours. And here's the problem. People don't have time to prepare. Okay, 30 hours is enough time to evacuate cities and place. And this is not normal. This is very abnormal. Going on, hotter years have more fires. Okay, and we've seen that also in fact in the last couple of years. We've had probably the worst fire years ever in California. You remember the fire in Paradise, California 3 years ago that destroyed and killed a lot of people, which was pretty awful. But look at this, the number of fires in recent years. So the Dixie Fire this year burned about 965,000 acres, became the second largest ever behind the August Complex Fire of last year, 2020, which was the largest fire ever, burned over 1 million acres. But look at all the largest fires ever. They're all 2020, right? You can see them all. These are the 7 largest fires we've ever had. In 2020, over 4 million acres burned in California. This year, thank God, it's not as bad, even though we've had one of the largest ever. It has not been as bad a fire season as we've had in the past. But fires have been a result of the warmer weather. And of course, I like this chart because I took this picture. I caught a lightning bolt. How is that for a lucky shot? Okay. The amazing thing about this picture is that this is approximately where the SCU fire started, back behind these hills here, which is right behind where I live. And so, my question was, was this the lightning bolt that did the job? Don't know, it could be. It's not just California. Worldwide, you can see by this chart that, we've had a lot of extreme weather events, and they just keep going and growing in size over time. So again, more evidence that, hey, yeah, it's having an effect. Climate change is having an effect, and not a very good effect. Now, can global warming also cause extreme cold weather? People say, huh, how could that happen? Actually, it can. In 2018, and it's happened since, temperatures at the North Pole rose to 50 degrees higher than normal. And this was due to some extremely hot weather conditions in Siberia that kind of pushed north up into the northern regions. The polar vortex is a mass of cold air that typically circles around the North Pole, and when it behaves itself, it stays there and everything is fine. But when that mass of hot air hit it, it caused that polar vortex to split. And let me show you a graphic of how that looked. So you see in this particular case, the warming from Asia slammed into the polar vortex, causing it to split into 2 parts. Part of it hit the northern part of the US, part of it hit the northern part of Europe. The result was that in Chicago, for example, the boardwalk along Lake Michigan totally froze over. The temperatures dropped to -22, -50 wind chill. That's cold. In fact, my niece who lives there said she couldn't go out with her kids for 3 days because it hurt to breathe. That's not good. That's not good. So, and then update 2021, you recall earlier this year, the extreme cold that hit Texas by surprise, that was the polar vortex actually moving that far south because again of influences of inclement weather, too much heat coming from the other direction. And so it's causing that whole problem. Okay, so yes, bottom line is that the global warming can cause extreme cold weather in different parts of the world as well. Sea level rise, there's evidence of it right now. Miami Beach right now today floods when high tide. I mean, that's just a fact, okay? And the two cities that have the most at risk because they're very low relative to sea level are Miami and New York City. So they have to be taking precautions on what they're gonna do. Another staggering statistic, and one that we don't like to really look at, is worldwide air pollution kills about 9 million people a year. And you say, well, why don't we ever hear about this? Because it doesn't happen much in the United States. It happens in third world countries, it happens in China, it happens in India, but that's a lot of people that are being killed by air pollution, okay? In the Bay Area in 2020, we had 51 spare the air days. So, that was basically due to all those fires that we had. And that was a new record of spare the air days. Fortunately, 2021 is not as bad. My concern is that, when the weather isn't as bad, people say, oh, we don't really have a problem. We don't have to do anything. Not so. We can't let, a better year airwise lull us to sleep, because if we don't do anything, there would be more to come. Species extinction, again, if we don't do anything, we could risk losing up to 50% of all land-based species in this century. And this could be akin to the last extinction we had was the dinosaurs back 65 million years ago. And if we don't do anything about what's happening right now, we could experience something very similar here. And this one will not be caused by a meteorite, it'll be caused by human beings. So, scientific reports. There have been a number of them. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has talked about what their most recent publication in October of 2018 talked about the impact of a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase versus a 2.0. Basically what this is saying is right now today we're between 1.1 and 1.2 degrees Celsius higher than Industrial Revolution period. And they're saying, hey, if we get to 1.5, things will get a little worse. If we get to 2.0, things are going to get a lot worse. So, a lot of these weather, in other words, a lot of these weather events you're seeing will just get more frequent and more intense. Okay. The United States had its own climate assessment, so I don't know anybody knows about that. But that assessment acknowledged global warming is real, and it concluded that human activity is the dominant driver. Well, that's really interesting, since the administration at the time totally denied global warming. So here's our own US scientist climate report saying, hey, it's real and it's up to us. And why didn't anybody hear about it? Because it was released on Black Friday. Think about that. Everybody's looking at ads and things, they're not looking at the news. So it was deliberate cover up because they didn't want people to get excited about it. So implications. We just need to be aware that, we're approaching a 1.5 degrees Celsius mark right now. The Paris Accords, got countries to try to agree to keep us to that level, but I don't know whether we're going to be able to do that or not. The time frame, the important thing is that the time frame for taking action, or before we see serious consequences start to happen, has moved up to 2030. That's 9 years from now, and that means we can't wait until 2030 to do anything. They're saying, hey, we're going to see serious consequences by 2030 if we don't do anything right now. So that's really important to understand. So we need to take action, all right? And hopefully our new administration will do that. We need to support them. We need to help pass the new bills that are up in Congress right now. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how you do that in just a minute. Okay, this chart, which is slow to evolve here, we're talking about a half a degree Celsius here, half a degree, there. And you say, well, gee, that's a pretty tiny increase. How can that be so important? This chart shows that if you are slightly below 32 degrees in temperature, you have ice. If you are slightly above 32 degrees, you have water, okay, a tipping point. So a very small change in temperature can cause ice to turn into water. And this is literally what's happening, right? As the planet heats up and the melting point moves north, and we have glaciers and the Arctic Ocean melting, and things are, Greenland, we can see it happening right now. And it's all because of this minute change in temperature. So don't let these small numbers fool you into thinking, oh, it's not that big. It is big. So is climate change real? I hope I've shown you that it is, without a doubt. And is it hopeless? Absolutely not. I don't want you to get, come away from this talk saying, oh, shoot, what can we do about it? We can put a stop to it right now. We just need to become more active in our roles, okay? And it's all of us, our old folks as well as our young folks. We all need to work together on this. So yes. And the question now becomes, can we change? So let's take a look at what we've got going on here. We have the solutions at hand right now, and it's called clean renewable energy, okay? So let's take, now I can't do a presentation to students without a quiz. So here's your quiz. So right now, today, as far as you know from what you've read and learned, what is the lowest cost alternative for electric energy available today? Is it 1, nuclear, 2, coal, 3, natural gas, or 4, solar and wind? So write down your answer, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at wind first. And you can see that since, basically since 2000, and especially since 2010, there's been a dramatic increase in global wind energy capacity. While that looks really good, it only provides a very small portion of what we need, but the trend is in the right direction in terms of more and more wind capacity being installed. And how does this happen? Well, as my old accounting background comes into play here, reducing cost. Reducing costs helps these things become cheaper and more economically viable to install. So that's the rationale on why this is happening. It's not just happening for esoteric reasons. Globally, wind could supply 40% more energy than what we consume right now. So plenty of wind available if we could harness it. Solar, even better. If you look at the solar voltaic installations, it's huge. This has been a substantial increase since 2010. You can see how much that is. And again, this is all made possible again by cost. If you look at the reduction in cost from almost $80 a watt down to right now, it's like 20 cents. It's been quite dramatic. And so cost of solar is becoming cheaper and cheaper as we move forward in time. So, the question becomes, well, why isn't that evident, in terms of what we see in terms of our costs? Well, look at energy subsidies, and you'll see that renewable energy is subsidized by 143 billion, and you say, well, that's pretty good. Why? Compare it to fossil fuel, and their subsidies are 37 times that much, or 5.3 trillion. So one of the big things in the new energy bills that are being proposed is to cut these fossil fuel subsidies out and let them compete on a one-to-one basis, which is what the economy should do, okay? But quit putting all this money into a dying industry. So to go back to the quiz, you can see that nuclear is, by far the highest when you take away the subsidies. Conventional coal, second highest. Natural gas is third, and whoops, that was a thick finger move there, get back. And the reason why coal is disappearing is because of natural gas, pretty much. It's cheaper, it's just, laws of economics, okay? But today, if you take away all the subsidies, the cheapest forms of energy in the United States and in the world, for that matter, are renewable energy, solar and wind. So those of you who answered 4 to the quiz got it right. I would love to be able to see how many of you actually did that, but I can't see the screen, so I don't know. But that's the truth. Okay, so there's enough solar energy to hit the planet every hour to fill all the world's energy needs for a year. Okay, so prodigious amount of solar energy available, and we need to make more use of it. So, of course, the question always comes up, what happens when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow? And the answer is we need to come up with the ability to store energy. If you look at this chart, here we are in 2021, and by 2040, you see just a huge dramatic increase in the amount of energy storage capacity. And you have to ask the same question, how is that going to happen? And the answer is pretty much the same. The reducing costs, I mean, the cost of lithium ion batteries has dropped 90% in the last 10 years. That's pretty dramatic. But we don't just have lithium ion to depend on. We have other technologies that use other bases like silicon for energy storage. So there's a lot of new technologies coming out, and I feel comfortable that we're actually going to achieve those targets. The other reason why I feel comfortable is because if you look at the forecast for funding for renewables, you see that right now there's about twice as much money going into renewables as fossil fuel. But by 2025, that's going to be almost 3 to 4 times as big. And by 2030, we're talking almost 6 times as much funding going into clean energy. So this is where you're going to see the real changes and the improvements in battery storage as well. Moving on to industry. Listed here are all the auto manufacturers who are moving to electric, which is like all of them. They, and they have to. There's no reason for them not to, and because this is the direction that we are headed. And again, if you look at General Motors, they decided that they have seen the writing on the wall because they're going to phase out fossil fuel cars and light trucks by 2035. That's an amazing target because it means that you will be buying electric vehicles. And the reason being, one, it's the fast-growing segment in the auto industry. They're no dummies. There's like, hey, we need to get involved, we need to get on the bandwagon. But 2, cost savings. There's fewer parts, and fewer workers required to build these cars, so it's going to cost less. Also, General Motors made to me an incredible statement that they're going to become carbon neutral by 2025. Wow, that would be amazing. So all of their energy that they use in their plants will be, they'll be carbon neutral. They claim that they will avoid 1 million metric tons of carbon emissions by moving that forward from 2040 to 2025. So hats off to GM. And then Ford, of course, says, well, wait a minute, what about us? They're planning to spend $11 million through 2025 on electric vehicles. And they also say that they will become energy neutral by 2035. So that's all very good news. And I don't know if you got any of you car buffs, but the E-Mustang is just a beast. That thing is amazing. And for car enthusiasts and who love power cars, they're going to love this one. Now we get back to cost. So here's what the cost of a fossil fuel car is projected to increase, inflation, whatever, over the next 15 years. Now, superimposed on that is the cost of mainstream electric cars. Notice that in the next 1 to 2 years, electric cars are going to become cheaper than fossil fuel cars. When that happens, a new paradigm shift will occur because electric cars are going to become cheaper than fossil fuel cars. And when that happens, the whole thing shifts, right? And people will start really moving in droves. And this is why the car companies see this, and that's why they're all moving to electric vehicles, because they see, hey, and we better get going because in the next couple of years, they're going to be cheaper than the fossil fuel cars. So this is very encouraging news. There's the technology is there, it's on its way. My last slide in this segment is this is the Kentucky Coal Mining Museum. I like this slide because of the irony that the Coal Mining Museum put solar panels on its roof because it could save $8,000 to $10,000 a year in energy costs. So you gotta love this one. Because hey, listen, if these guys can make that change, can we? So can we. Yes, we can. Okay, so the technology is there. The question now is the will there? Okay, will we change? So let's talk about that for a bit. So in 2015, the US and every other nation in the world signed the Paris Accord that they would achieve net greenhouse gas emission neutrality by mid-century. As you know, the prior administration briefly got us out of the Paris Agreement, but we were right back in 30 days after the new president was inaugurated. So, and that's important because the other nations of the world look up to us, right? And so, if they see us backing out, they're going to say, hey, why should we do it? Those are the biggest polluters of all. Why should we do that? The question always also comes up, well, what about China and India? Don't they pollute more than we do? Well, India does not, but China does currently. But think about the fact that China has 5 times more people than we do. And so on a per person basis, we pollute way more than they do. But China is a heavy user of coal. You can see historically, though, who's put the most gigatons of CO2 into the atmosphere, and it's the United States. We by far lead the way, and that makes us responsible for helping fix the problem. So moving forward, let's look at what's happening in China. So, and these are the latest figures I have, but in 2019, note that solar and wind made up 52% of their new capacity. And if you added nuclear and hydro, it's like 60%. So even though they still burn a prodigious amount of coal, the trend is in the right direction. We're looking at more and more solar and wind going in China. And here's an example of a solar farm in China. And you have to love the irony of this one because you can only see this from the air, but it's called the solar panda. So you gotta love it. How about India? India is even a little bit more. If you take solar, wind, and other renewables, they're about 60 to almost 65% renewables coming online in 2019. Again, they burn a huge amount of coal still. So the problem isn't over, but the trend is in the right direction, and we have to respect that. Europe, of course, has led the way. Europe is almost totally coal-free. If you add in natural gas and if you add in other renewables, they're almost 95% renewable energy. So Europe is really leading the pack. They'll probably become energy neutral in the next 5 years. How about the United States? Are we lagging behind? Actually, no, we're not. Okay, if you look at 2019, 70% of our new capacity is from solar and wind. So we are really moving in the right direction. You notice zero coal, right? There are no new coal plants going in, and there won't be. But this is good news. And in fact, even better, by February of 2023, it's projected that the US will retire another 19 gigawatts of coal-fired plants, and at the same time install another 197 gigawatts of wind and solar. So we are definitely moving in the right direction. Okay, so good news. Now, some people say, well, it's going to cost us jobs. No, actually, the 2 fastest growing occupations in the United States are solar panel installers and wind turbine technicians. And this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So the jobs are growing dramatically in those 2 fields, not surprisingly. If you go to business, 300 global companies have now committed to go to 100% renewable. And that's huge. So when you get that giant industrial complex on the move, it's going to make a difference. California, which is, you probably know this already too, the world's 5th largest economy, if you just took it by itself, passed legislation requiring that by 2045, 100% of the state's electricity will be carbon free. Okay, and the entire state will be carbon neutral by 2045. Being the 5th largest economy on the planet, this is also huge news. Okay. How about big money? See, as a finance guy, I always like to listen to what big money has to say because a lot of times it's the way things happen. So BlackRock, which is the largest investment manager in the world, has $6 trillion in assets, just issued a climate warning to their investors. And they're basically, what they're saying is that the markets are underpricing climate risk. They're not recognizing it. And so they're, in essence, their portfolios are overvalued. And this is what they're telling their people and saying, hey, you better be aware of this. The two important points that come out of BlackRock is, one, they are recognizing the reality of climate change. So they're saying, hey, this is real, and you guys better do something, think about it relative to your portfolios. Secondly, just recently, in this past 6 months, they joined another organization and voted 2 pro-climate directors on Exxon's board of directors. How about that? Does that send a message to the fossil fuel world? Yes, it does, big time. If somebody like BlackRock is supporting moving, getting pro-climate directors onto their boards. So you better believe that it's going to get the other companies involved in maybe rethinking their business plan. We can only hope. How about the Federal Reserve? They're already considering the risk of climate change on long-term monetary policy. And they're basically saying that it now becomes a major factor in terms of whether they raise or lower long-term interest rates. Again, this is huge because it has a significant impact on economic growth. And they just look at all the weather disasters that we've had over the last 20 to 30 years and saying, hey, this is not something that we can ignore. The Biden administration, as you all know, is really pushing hard to get the financial sector to face up to climate risk, the policies to slash greenhouse gas emissions. They also recognize the cost of the climate disasters. This is a real thing, $95 billion. That's a lot of money. And so they're saying, hey, we need to make some fundamental changes. One, because it's the right thing to do, but two, it's also financial correct. So in the new economic plan, they're proposing huge changes, and we're hoping that this plan will finally get passed. I'm going to have to get a drink here. All right. And even philanthropy is getting into the act. So this last year, a $5 million donation was made by a consortium of philanthropists to protect nature. I think that that's happening more and more. The World Economic Forum has an initiative, a trillion tree initiative, to plant that many trees. Remember, trees are the biggest absorber of carbon dioxide. And so to plant more trees would help pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So restoring the forests are something that's very important. Securities and Exchange Commission is adopting new standards. They're saying, hey, all you companies, from now on, you're going to have to report on how you are acting relative to climate change. So again, that's another huge influencer on businesses. Excuse me, talking too much. I'll be done in just a minute. The United Nations appointed Michael Bloomberg to be a special envoy to businesses and to governments to tackle the threat of global warming. So United Nations is also working on this as well. So a lot of activity, a lot of things going on around the world to solve the problem. Let's get back to you. What can you do? Well, first of all, and maybe in the next couple of years, you'll be able to afford your own electric car. This handsome gentleman here is in love with his Tesla Model 3. It is the best car literally I have ever owned. It is so much fun to drive, and it's totally, runs on electricity. Can't bargain for a better deal. This is my house. These are the solar panels on my roof. I have 17 solar panels that provides more than enough energy to power my Tesla and also everything else I do, plus some. So if you can't afford an electric car or put solar on your roofs, here's something you all can do, okay? So if you live in San Jose or in Silicon Valley, that's the green part here, you all are members of a Community Choice Energy Association, which allows you to, if you want, opt up to 100% renewable energy delivered to your door, okay? All you gotta do is email them and have your PG&E account number on hand and say, hey, I wanna opt up to 100% renewable, and the next day, they will be delivering 100% renewable energy to your door. Right now, you get a roughly 50-50 mix from PG&E. with fossil fuel and clean, but you can opt up to 100%. So there's a minimal cost increase. I've been monitoring mine. I've been doing this for almost 3 years now, and the cost increase is minimal, and that's going to come down as as renewable energy continues to come down in cost. But for less than a cup of coffee a month, you can have renewable energy delivered straight to your door. And if you and talk to your landlord, talk to your folks, whoever, say, hey, we can do this, okay? What else can college students do? Talk about it. This is a really, really important issue. This is not something we can ignore. We need to talk with friends, relatives, family, anybody who we can get listen and say, hey, this is real. This is our future. We need to talk about this, and we need to take action on it, okay? Talk and action. Look for environmental resources courses. We have a huge environmental studies group here at San Jose State. A lot of activities like today are being put on by the Office of Sustainability. Come and join in. And I just applaud all of you who are here today because, you're doing it, okay? And this is what we need to get more students to do. Take a look at what's available and get involved, okay? Educate yourself at climate-related issues. You're all experts at research these days, right? This is what you do as a college student. So do your own research. If you don't want to accept somebody else's opinion, look it up yourself, but do one or the other, okay? Now, I took climate reality training because, I wanted to learn the facts, and I did. And there will be more training. So if there's, more in the future, sign up. And if you can, actually, my wife and I just gave up red meat. I can't believe we actually did it, but we did. Excuse me.
Bill, what does CRP stand for again? Climate what?
I'm sorry, Climate Reality Project.
Okay, thanks.
That's an organization formed by Al Gore back about 20 years ago now. What else can you do? Vote pro-climate, either for candidates or for laws or what's happening. We in the last national election, we voted pro-climate and we won. That was huge, and we just need to keep that momentum going. There's a couple interesting videos that you can watch if you're interested. One called Ice on Fire by Leonardo Dicaprio talks about a lot of the new technology coming out to actually pull carbon out of the air. And I think it's kind of an interesting one. The other, Kiss the Ground, Woody Harrelson narrates it, talks about regenerative agriculture and how it actually sequesters CO2 into the ground and keeps it there. So some very important movements that are happening to help solve the problem. But other things that you can do, so that's something research-wise you can do. Watch those films, learn what's going on. But becoming a climate activist, it's not time to be shy, right? It's your future, and you need to be engaged. So, if there are strikes, demonstrations that you can participate in, do it, okay? Move to electrify everything. So I have just installed a heat pump water heater. We've just ordered a gas, replacing our gas dryer with an electric dryer. So we're going to be electrifying our home. Getting rid of gas out of your house is a smart thing anyway, okay? Because burning gas releases noxious fumes, and you're breathing this stuff every time you turn on a gas burner. If you do use a gas burner, please turn on your exhaust fan, okay? Because that's really important. Join organizations. I mean, I belong to all of these, 350.org, Sierra Club, of course, Climate Reality, Citizen Climate Lobby, and for you, maybe more interesting, Sunrise is a group of young people your age. And but they provide you with information, okay, up-to-date information on what's going on. And they provide, like I get, every, 2-3 times a week, I'll get something from either 350 or Sierra Club saying, hey, we're supporting this kind of legislation. Click here to add your name, and a copy of the letter will go to your congressman and to your senators. And it's that easy, okay? And you can actually get your words in. So do that, join these organizations because they allow you easy access and makes it, like I say, very simple for you to become involved. Climate Reality Campus Corps. So we just started a Climate Reality Campus Corps on campus just in the last year. We're very thrilled to have that. There are other local campus corps around with students from these various universities. I'm faculty advisor, so I just invite you to join. You can contact the group at Climate Reality SJSU, right? Climate Reality SJSU at gmail.com. And if you want to get involved in work here on campus, join this group. I mean, they're really gung-ho to get going. I know we've got 1 or 2 members on the call right now, but I would strongly suggest that you get involved, and this is a good way to do it. This is a student organization. Other things, letters to the editor. If you're a good writer, I mean, get yourself published. It's kind of awesome. I got one. If you got a topic that you really feel strongly about and you can, eloquently talk about it, go ahead and submit the letters. A lot of times, you might be surprised. This one you can all do, writing and emailing your federal and state representatives. Like I say, I do it all the time, mostly, with the help of these organizations I belong to that make it really simple and easy to do so. Again, anybody you can talk to, places of worship, friends, relatives, just keep yourself informed, keep yourself up to date on what is happening. I just did come on. Okay, I did, I got back, okay. Keep yourself informed, reading, research. I produce a weekly newsletter for everybody I know, my friends, relatives, business associates, just updating on what's going on in the world of climate. I do that every Sunday morning. I send out my weekly newsletter. You're all welcome if you want to join. It's just my name, Bill DeVincenzi at me.com. You can find me also, in my San Jose State, William.DeVincenzi, under faculty. And if you're interested in getting this newsletter and being kept up to date, I would be happy to do that for you. Okay, last slide. So what would the world look like? And this is kind of like one of those meditative endings, but it's like, how about visualize less foggy days? Wouldn't that be nice? Or fewer devastating forest fires, milder weather events. And right now we're having a mild rainstorm. Not so bad, right? Reduced immigration. People don't have to go looking for food and places to live anymore. It'll be where they can live where they are. More abundant and healthier food, because right now the droughts and things are really significantly affecting the health of our food. Improved health, is again very important and related to climate. Improved visibility, actually being able to look out and see mountains and hills and things that are around us. Improved biodiversity. And last but not least, a safe and healthy future for our children, our grandchildren, future generations, and all life. And that is, by the way, how I end all of my climate newsletters. So use your voice, use your vote, and use your choices to speak truth to power like your world depends on it. Because your world depends on it. Okay, thank you so much for listening. And I'd like to, I'm going to stop my screen share and hopefully I can see you all. And we can start to answer some of your questions. I'll look at the chat, but if you have a question you'd like to answer or ask, raise your hand and I'll try to find you. So let's see. I am looking, do you know any internship programs within these organizations? Okay, yeah, actually, one of the things I'm working on, in fact, I met with a group last night. It's a group of business, governmental people, and nonprofit organizations. I call them my advisory council. And one of the things that I'm working with them on is arranging for internships. Like I got one from HP. If you have IT background, because this project that they're talking about, has a lot to do with sustainability and IT. Email me and I will put you on this list, or I'll send you the job description and who to contact. So yes, I am arranging for those kinds of things. I'm also planning on creating a practicum, so that kind of like what I do with the Sabona Honors Program, where I put students into business to work on special projects. In this case, it could be sustainability related and climate related. And So we're working on getting that going. I'm also working on a sustainability minor. So in the next 6 months, you will probably read about what courses you can take if you're interested in doing a sustainability minor. It won't become official until the next year, but we'll start advertising which courses we're going to be putting in there. So we're really, and one of those, of course, is a course that deals with climate change and sustainability, because to me, the two go together. Okay, that sustainability is the answer, is the solution to the climate problem. If we learn how to live sustainably on this planet, then the climate issue starts to really go away. Okay, other questions? Got one more chat question here. You're welcome, Kalana.
I was going to mention, Bill, that while you're looking through the questions, that this was a really great presentation. And a lot of times when I just think about the future of mankind, it's depressing a little bit. But seeing the statistics and all your, I've never seen like positive kind of statistics and information about that. So it's very uplifting.
Well, good. And thank you for sharing that, David, because I don't want to leave people with the impression that, oh, it's terrible and it's hopeless. It is absolutely not. And, but the question is, and so you need to present the problem, because you need to understand, hey, this is a real problem, guys. It's not going to go away. And if we don't do anything, it could get worse. Okay. So that's the threat. But if we take action, collective action, and do some of the things I was talking about here, we can make a difference. We can make a difference. And so we're trying to do that here at San Jose State by enhancing our sustainability and hopefully helping to solve some of those problems locally. But if everybody does that, we can make a real difference. And so, and that was why I was trying to point out to you all the different things that are happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cars, the car companies, the industry, the big money, philanthropy, all these things are moving in the right direction. Okay.
Yeah, especially I've never heard that before. So especially hearing from the economic end or the business end that they might have a bigger stake at this is very encouraging. I always picture like Terminator 2, right around the corner, and this is nice to hear.
Yeah.
I think someone was asking for your personal email address again.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
Did you Green Ninjas have any questions?
So there's my personal email address. If you want to email me about anything relative to sustainability or climate change, I'll be happy to answer. If you want to get on my newsletter, fine. I would be more than happy to add you to that. I think it's really important to keep up to speed. Keep what you have learned and keep that information moving forward. I think that's really great.
Mm-hmm. And Justin Lung, I think, had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering if you could speak a little more about the research you've done, or maybe any firsthand experiences you've had with dealing with climate change.
Yeah, well, firsthand, buying an electric car was a well thought out decision. It was expensive, but I just said, hey, that's the way I have to go. One of the things I just did with my 2 kids is I offered them $10,000 each if they would buy an electric car. So, it's just, because I want them to move forward as well. But we're changing all of our appliances in our house to electric, so we're going all electric. So again, these are things that, you can do or encourage your folks to do, or where, your landlords to do. I think it's really important. Working with Elders Climate Action. This is an organization of maybe 15,000 people around the country, actually some worldwide. And again, there's strength in numbers, but I'm, the vice president of finance of that organization. And so I handle their financial information, but I also am a strong advocate and a leader in that organization. And, again, spreading the word, trying to get old folks like me off their asses, right, to actually take action again. I mean, we're like the activists of the 1970s and 60s. And so here we are, we're still here, right, just a little older. But darn it, we're still active, and so I'm trying to rejuvenate those roots and say, hey, come on, guys, you need to get back out on the streets again, because this is important, and we just can't let it slide. So being involved in that organization has been, very fruitful for me, very uplifting for me, and I think we're making a difference. I mean, they've got all kinds of educational programs, things for elders. to get involved in, to really enhance, because we're 60 million of us. Okay, that's a huge percentage, and we vote. And I'm not going to knock you guys, but we vote more than anybody. Okay, the elders are the highest voting percentage of population in the country. We need you guys to become the highest percentage of voters in the country, because it's your future, and you really need to get out there and encourage all of your friends, everybody you know, to vote pro-climate. This is so important for you and your future. Just know that we are working in the background with you. Okay.
And there are two more questions in chat.
Sure.
One from Avilia.
Okay, and
then Kiana had a quick one too.
Yeah, that's not an easy answer, Avilia, because anything you buy and discard is not a good thing. I mean, it's not just smartphones. It's anything that you buy and discard. And what we're really looking at is what I would call a circular economy, where products are cradle to cradle, not cradle to grave, right? Where you have a huge amount of waste. So if you are buying a smartphone every couple of years and the old one is being recycled or reused or repurposed, fine, not a problem. But if it's being discarded and going into the landfill, then that is a problem. And that really applies to just about anything you buy or use, whether it's clothes or food or what have you. So elimination of waste is a huge thing, and we need to be really conscious of that. And let's see, Kiana, you had a question?
Yes, I did. I apologize if this was already answered and I just missed it, but will these slides in this recording be made available to the public? And if so, where can we find them?
Yes, it will. It's being recorded. Debbie, how can they find this recording? See if Debbie's still there.
I think Debbie may
Debbie
be off.
is posting. Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
Debbie's
you.
posting. Remember, she's got laryngitis, so she can't be talking all that much.
Right. Thank you.
So it's on our
follow-up question.
YouTube channel, she says. Okay, go ahead.
So
Kiana.
sorry.
No.
I was wondering, because there were so many resources and organizations listed, do you have a recommendation for students like myself who are hoping to create a project in the next year related to sustainability to work with, or maybe help get funding or additional advice and scholarship to make it an informative project?
Actually,
which organization should we work with?
We actually, Kiana, just a side thing is that if you can talk to me about it, we have within our college, I believe there's some funds that students can apply for working with on a project with a faculty member. So that's one resource.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if you're talking about sustainability, Kiana, what David said is the answer. Okay, because I have again, and you can contact me because I'm starting to get now from this group I just formed. One of the things I'm asking them for are research projects and things that I could send students, either individual students as interns or groups of students to work for them. So I should be getting, and this is for everybody, I expect that I shall start getting a lot of information coming from this group on where we might involve students. But yeah, thank you for that question. It's a good one. Any other questions?
It's a great presentation, Bill. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, and thank you all for attending and hanging in there until the end. Much appreciated. I don't think we hardly lost anybody from when we started, and that's always a great sign.
Yeah.
That either I had you entranced or whatever. But thank you so much. Keep in touch. Again, you have my email if you'd like to talk more or how you might get involved. Get in touch with our climate core here on campus, and I hope to see you all again.
Cool. See you tomorrow, Bill.
All right. Yep.
Yeah.